Good evening and welcome to the closing event of our 2012 International Education Week, sponsored by Santa Monica College's Global Citizenship Council and the Department of Communication. My name is Salvador Carrasco and I am a film director and film professor here at SMC. This evening we are thrilled to have with us a true global citizen and a pioneer woman filmmaker, Christine Choy, with whom I have had a close relationship for 20 years. First as my teacher and mentor at New York University's Tisch School of the Arts, and now as a colleague and dear friend. For 4 decades, Christine Choy films have spanned continents and traveled into the diverse layers of societies, lives, and history. Christine's work has a bold sweep that reaches from the story of modern China to the everyday lives of the downtrodden in America's neglected corners. In 2001, she told the New York Times, quote, "I have always identified with the have-nots. Regardless of family background, my heart relates to voiceless people." Using the camera as a dagger to cut through the blindfold that the media can etherize us with, Christine's documentaries tell us much about who we are as a society. The stories she captures have the narrative power of a Steinbeck novel and a universal relevance that never ages. Consider her 1987 Oscar-nominated film, Who Killed Vincent Chin?, which chronicles the disturbing case of a Chinese engineer beaten to death in Detroit by a Chrysler worker seeking revenge for the collapse of the US auto industry. In a globalized world where an ongoing economic crisis is shaking industrial nations and ethnic prejudices are again rearing their heads, many of them profoundly anti-Chinese, as witnessed in a recent presidential debate, this film has a renewed urgency. The ever so delicate fabric of American society, with its myriad of silent and open conflicts, have marked other notable Choy films such as Mississippi Triangle and The Best Hotel in Skid Row. With these films, Christine presents the American cauldron stripped of mythology, exposing a system that prides itself on its diversity while imposing homogeneous socioeconomic conditions that breed all kinds of tribal reactions. Christine's lens has also been aimed unrelentingly at China, the land of her birth. The powerful 1998 documentary, In the Name of the Emperor, bravely looks at the brutal Japanese invasion of China in the 1930s and the notorious massacre known as the Rape of Nanjing. Like the journalism of Robert Fisk, Christine's film refuses to look at the tragedy of war from a distance. Through interviews and eyewitness footage, she forces us to face an almost unbearable human experience. This film is both a searing document of a terrible atrocity and an overpowering call never to let history simply fade away. For this and many more things, I am grateful to this extraordinary woman, including the fact that I have already started sending her some of our own graduates from the film program here at SMC to continue their studies at NYU. Not to mention the fact that she also helped us open some bolted doors during our recent professional development trip to China. Please join me in welcoming the one and only Christine Choy.
One thing I learned, you never have a preconceived idea of what you think the other party will say or whatever. You have to be very much Zen-like. Clean up your preconceived idea. People are people. They know whether you are really honest, sincere. If you walk in any kind of environment with already kind of motivation, doesn't work. Doesn't work. So you have to be extremely disciplined, not to have that kind of I'm above you, that kind of attitudes. How do I interview the killer? I did, okay.
How hard?
Well, I have a few very original tricks. He didn't want to give me an interview. Meanwhile, I went to Africa. I made a film about independence of Namibia. I went to North Korea. I made a film about Southern North relations. And I made a film, I think, In the Name of an Emperor in Japan about Nanjing Massacre. But wherever I want, I send him a postcard in different language, African language, North Korean, Japanese. I kept sending. Sometimes I send him an Easter card, Christmas card, Bar Mitzvah card, you name it, and a Hanukkah card. So you create this little identity, very different than other journalists. He remembered me. At the second trial, when he won, I was in Cincinnati. There were very few Asians. He came down to the courthouse. He won. I walked up to him. I said, "Congratulations." I think he almost had a heart attack. In his entire life, he never even dreamed about that an Asian woman would come up to me and congratulate his victory. So I said, "Hey, I'm Christine Choy." I said, "You the one sent me all those postcards." I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we're going to have a little celebration. Would you like to come join us?" So they went to the bar. It was like 1 o'clock afternoon, and he ordered so many drinks. He's really alcoholic. And I said, "Wow, let's film him now." He said, "Put the camera down. He's so familiar with the media." No. I said, "Fine." I said, "Ronald, it's the fact. Whether you're in the film or not in the film has to be finished. You're going to be so pissed because you don't have your side of the story." And he agreed with me. And following couple weeks, he called me up and says, "We are able to interview in Detroit." Well, one thing I also, student, because I was born in communism, then we moved to Hong Kong. At that time, Hong Kong was colonialism. British colonialism. From colonialism, we moved to South Korea, which was neo-colonialism by America. Then we moved to Japan, was a monarchy, okay? Then I came to the United States at the age of 15 and advanced capitalism. Just imagine, I went through all the isms. So I learned how to talk the isms. So when I was in North Korea, I could talk in communist language, different terms. In China, I can speak communist terms. Then when I was in Korea, I can talk their feudal language. I speak Korean as well. And so because I don't have the ism, and they help me really, again, do not have preconceived ideology. I have, because I was so immersed with all this dialectical materialism, Marxist-Leninism, Mao Zedong thought, Kim Il-sung thought, all these things. So I started to realize all this ism is like a poison. It's try to make you not to think, to obey,
Especially after watching this clip, I'm very interested to know what you think about China's current system. Is it a beacon of progress, or is it like a vision of the future, like a new form of really authoritarian capitalism? I
don't think in China will go truly capitalism, and they call themselves the socialism. Okay. However, there's a one-party system, but don't forget, people forget one-party system doesn't mean dictatorship. They got the communism all screwed up this country. With any party, even with the Republican Party, they can unite in the front, but internally there are a lot of contradictions, a lot of different point of view. The old generation, the new generation, the population growth, and the GDP, the rise of GDP. Because China is a the modern industrialized country, create tremendous amount of pollution, okay? But you have to look at the other side. People's consumer goods are available. The life, live more comfortable. You have a hot water in the house. And just a few years ago, it wasn't like that. And I can show you an example. And I was in a small village, too small village, documenting the rural life of China. I mean, between have and have-nots, China is increasing its gap. So my other film, I'm in work in progress, is the migration, like a great migration from the South to Detroit for the car industry. Same pattern took place in the 50s in the United States is happening in China. So you have to look at it historically, how China became such close ally with the African nation. It didn't happen yesterday. And that's what the Western analysis about New China's neo-colonialism was really, really one-sided. Yeah. And I interviewed the people in Ghana, purposely interviewed people who were long residents in Ghana, 38 years, 40 years, they've been living there, you know. And I also talked to the young Ghanaians. They went to school, they speak Chinese, they went to school in Beijing, especially in technology, science, and medical doctors, the medical field. You know, the IMF, World Bank, made poor country more poor. Jamaica is right down near the United States. It was bankrupt. And the Korea owes so much money to IMF. Unfortunately, was a dictator, the Park Chung-hee. What he did, he sent all the young men, young capable men to Germany, work in a mine, to bring hard cash back and pay back the World Bank. That's how Korea, you know, started its own economy. And Africa didn't have the capacities, you know, and it was just in debt, and plus the internal corruption of government, you know. Money never went to the population. It's all went to the pocket of the bureaucrats. And the white, the bankers, when they arrived in any capital city, they go to stay 4-star, 5-star hotels. They don't deal with the local people, and they only deal with the bureaucrats. Whereas the Chinese, when they built the Tanzania Railroad in 1976, you know, supposed to go to Mali, but the Mali had a coup d'etat by the French. So they built the Tanzania Railroad from Tanzania to Zambia. That was the first railroad. And it took them, a lot of people died there because of malaria, you know, yellow fever, and etc. There's a cemetery there. But it brought it opened the road, you know, for just transport people, transport goods. So building the infrastructure and building the school, highway, you know, dam, all those things are very, very important. Yes, everybody is looking for Africa. Africa as a last resort for resources of the entire world right now. We overkill the land. America, we're no longer able to plan anything. We kill the land. And Brazil is right now is very fertile, and China wanted to lease land from Brazil, but the Brazilians say, hell no, I'm not going to lease it to you. But within Africa, it's a very different situation, you know, because it's very mineral rich, oil, Nigeria, Angola, and also Ghana discover oil. They're rich in gold, but they didn't have a technology. So the deal relationship between China, it was very, very different than between the Western. I was there 2 years ago. I saw malaria. The biggest malaria hospital was built by the Chinese. They lived in the construction site for 3 years. 3 years. They built just temporarily, you know. Of course, they bring their coke, you know. They gotta bring their coke. And they live in the construction site. They never went to the hotel. And obviously, Chinese has its own arrogancies. Ghana speaks English. All these engineers speak English, but they refuse to speak English. They speak to the local people in Chinese, which I thought was comical, you know, or the sign language. But that will be gradually changed because the local people are not idiot, not stupid. The Western analysis of China is coming to neo-colonize Africa, as if Africans don't have a brains. That outlook in itself, to me, is really a racist attitude.
Finally, a personal anecdote to share with you the kind of teacher I experienced in Christine and which I strive to be myself. When I was a student at NYU, they used to hold an annual student film festival. I believe they still do. During my senior year, I was a directing student of Christine's, and I made a short film called To Fall in Exile. I submitted the film to the festival, and the powers that be at NYU rejected the film on the grounds that it was, quote, neither narrative nor experimental, end quote, which was exactly what I had set out to do, an experimental narrative film. Christine told me that they were a bunch of morons and to let it slip by me. But that's easier said than done when you're 22. It's not just that your sense of self is all of a sudden standing on quicksand. You make films for people to see them, not to censure or kill them. Sensing that I was having a hard time putting this behind me, Christine did two things. First, she gave me a $150 check to buy a 16mm print of my short film for her personal collection, which became the first money I ever made from one of my own films. And second, she urged me to submit my short film, as she put it, to festivals that actually meant something. To Fall in Exile went on to win a couple of festivals in the US and abroad, but what was even more significant is that the trust from someone I genuinely respected made me believe in myself, which is perhaps the greatest legacy we can ever give to our students.